Hey everyone, this is Vesper, and Capcom recently just announced their next character for Street Fighter V. The classic character slot has been taken by Zangief. It wasn't too much of a surprise that Zangief was the next character, since Ono recently tweeted 2 screenshots that very blatantly suggested that Zangief was the next character. We also get to see a new stage as well. So as of right now doing this video, we don't have any gameplay footage of Zangief, unfortunately, so I'll just break down the trailer and just talk about some of Zangief stuff. And then if we get some concrete gameplay footage, I might do another breakdown of Zangief afterwards. So as usual, let's talk about the aesthetics. Zangief looks pretty much the same, man. Capcom did not take any chances with this character whatsoever. It doesn't look like he aged a single day, so there's not much to talk about here. But the stage you see in the trailer is pretty sweet. Definitely a Zangief related stage. We see the bear in the background that I guess Zangief's gonna wrestle afterwards, or his practice dummy, or we could just call him Kuma. And then we got this underground pit fighting theme going on where people are illegally gambling on fights. And then we got some stereotypical stuff like doing the Russian dance in the background, these 2 dudes. And then we got this Russian doll, you know those dolls where you open them up and there's a smaller version of the doll? Sorry, I don't know what they're called. Anyways, back to Zangief, let's talk about his gameplay now. Gameplay wise, honestly, after watching the trailer, he looks very similar to the Omega version of Zangief in Ultra Street Fighter 4. He's definitely a true grappling character, but he's got some added tools now to close the gap between him and the opponent. So anyways, let's begin by breaking down the trailer. This trailer is actually very simple to break down, so we're just going to go in chronological order. So let's begin. So in the very first clip, we see Zangief use a standing hard kick, and it's a crush counter, keep that in mind, which juggles Bison up in the air and then he follows up with his spinning lariat. Now for the Omega version of Zangief, his standing hard kick also launched the opponent when you were close, and then you could juggle after as well on the far version. You can also see Zangief do this little flex at the end of the lariat as well. Moving on to the next clip, we see Zangief clearly doing his back throw. I'm starting to see a trend with these character trailers. Anyways, moving on to the next clip. So this is the first interesting footage we have here. We see Zangief charging up like Hulk, and then he punches Bison across the screen. We also see Zangief absorb a hit from Bison, so it definitely has armor. So it's very similar to Birdie's forward hard punch, for example. But anyways, this is Zangief's dynamite punch, pretty much, from the Omega version, where you hold down hard punch, and then he charges up a swing, and then he hits the opponent. I don't know if it has armor in the Omega version, but these are very similar. The animation looks exactly like Zangief's standing hard punch, which you see in the trailer, so don't be surprised if it's hold down hard punch. It's definitely a normal attack. Next up, we see Zangief do his forward throw on Bison. Very obvious. Even if you slow down the footage, you can see the startup animation of the throw, so it's clearly his forward throw. But at least it doesn't seem to knock the opponent that far away from him. Next up, we see another crush counter with Zangief, and Zangief starts off from a crouching position. It definitely looks like an anti-air, but this being said, it's most likely Zangief's crouching hard punch. It knocks Bison up pretty damn high for a follow-up, and then we see an EX version of it looks like an air spinning pile driver for Zangief. Do we want an air command grab? Zangief players say, yes please. Alright, in the next clip here, we see Zangief do his third crush counter, which is the standing hard punch. And then he links it into, I think it's called Atomic Suplex, the EX version. It's the command grab with the kick button. Anyways, since he can crush counter with the standing hard punch, and then we saw before where he's charging the hard punch, does that mean you can get a crush counter with that too, man? That's insane, man. Arm move with crush counter, but I guess Birdie has that too. And crush counters in general work very well with grapplers in Street Fighter V, since you can combo throws and command throws when your opponent is in a crushed state. Now in this next clip here, we see Zangief headbutting a projectile from Bison and seemingly nullifying at least one of the hits, because the EX version of Bison's Psycho Blast does 2 hits. So what is this? In the Omega version of Zangief, he's got this attack called Chrome Head, where he juggles up the opponent and he jumps towards him with a headbutt pretty much. It's forward hard punch, but this might be something similar. It definitely looks like a command normal, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's forward hard punch or forward medium punch. Moving on to the next clip, we see Zangief use his V reversal, and this is a pretty comical one. Zangief seemingly hits Bison with a suggestive part of his body. Bison's psycho power is not able to resist the attack, and then Bison is knocked away, not knocked down, just knocked away from Zangief. This V reversal looks pretty lackluster, especially when you compare it to Armika's V reversal, which he actually grabs the opponent, but Zangief wants to stay close. So now we finally get to see Zangief's V skill. Nope, it's not green hand like we thought it would be, because that's the formula for V-skills, is anti-projectile, but it's something that could be anti-projectile for sure. So let me read over Capcom Unity because they explained the V-skill. Anyways, it says Zangief can absorb 1 attack, which leaves him with recoverable health. If players hold down the V-skill and then press a direction on the joystick, Zangief will begin to slowly close in on the opponent. Upon release from the walk, Zangief flexes his muscles and hits the opponent if close enough. So anyways, right off the bat, I'm just going to say that this is a copy of the Omega Zangief parry, pretty much. Because the Omega move is called Iron Body, and then this V-skill in Street Fighter V is called Iron Muscle, so, Anyways, let's talk about the first part of this V-skill, where you just tap the buttons. It seems to be pretty much exactly like Ryu's parry. We don't know if it parries both high and low attacks, but we can assume it does. The only difference is that when Ryu parries, he takes no damage at all. But when Zangief does this, he takes recoverable damage, so grade damage. Now the question is, if you take grade damage, that means Zangief's going to gain a lot of V-gauge because he's taken the hit from this attack, essentially. And then he's gaining V-gauge from using the V-skill properly. Or will there be like added scaling to it to balance it out? Another thing is that Capcom Unity said it can only absorb 1 attack, but we see Zangief using it 3 times in a row here against Bison. So does that mean it's similar to Ryu where it can cancel into itself, like the parry? And if so, does that mean that Zangief has recovery on it? Because it looks like Zangief is recovering pretty damn fast and then going right into pile driver after parrying the attack. Now the second part of this is if you hold down the V skill, it says Zangief will begin walking towards the opponent slowly. Now we don't see any footage of this, but there actually is a screenshot of the last part is when you release the buttons after walking towards your opponent and charging it down, Zangief will flex and actually attack the opponent. So there is a screenshot shown on Capcom Unity. It doesn't seem to knock down the opponent, it just seems to knock him away. But anyways, while reading this, it kind of seems like red focus attack, but then again it says that Zangief can only absorb 1 attack. So I guess one of the only differences between Zangief's V-skill and Ryu's V-skill is that Zangief takes recoverable damage when he absorbs a hit, and then Ryu takes no damage at all when he successfully parries. But I'm still not sold yet on Zangief being able to cancel this V-skill into itself. It just seems too similar to Ryu. With that being said, this is a very powerful V-skill for Zangief, man. Being able to parry an attack basically and then go straight into pile driver, that's a little nuts. And we still haven't seen the second part of this V-skill either. We don't know how fast Zangief walks towards the opponent. We don't know if he only gains V-gauge if he successfully flexes and holds it down. Maybe that's the difference between him and Ryu. But if you're taking recoverable damage, it means you gain V-gauge anyways. Alright, so now let's look at Zangief's V-trigger. So Zangief's V-trigger is called Cyclone Lariat. And Zangief stays in one spot and he starts spinning around, and then he's pulling the opponent towards him and he starts smashing him a few times, and it seems to not give a shit about projectiles. Now, reading Capcom Unity, it says there's 2 parts of this V-trigger. The first part is if you just activate the V-trigger, Zangief starts spinning and pulls the opponent towards him. But if you continue to hold it down, that means Zangief will also keep spinning and then he'll hit the opponent afterwards, just like we see in the gameplay footage. So that means you could just tap it, make the opponent come towards you, and then you can do a setup from there, like you could do a pile driver for example. You don't necessarily have to hit him with it. But if you see him pulling towards him and he's like unsafe or you're hit confirming or whatever, you could just continue to hold down the V-trigger and just hit him with the V-trigger itself. And as I said before, it seems to completely ignore projectiles, goes right through Zangief. But yeah, man, for a grappler character to have an ability to pull the opponent towards them without magnetism, that's pretty damn good. I'm curious if this still works if the opponent is in the air, and I wonder if you could pull him from just full screen if you just hold this thing down. But anyways, how many bars do you think Zangief's V-gauge is? This is a single activation V-trigger. Once again, I'm assuming it's going to be 2 bars. And in case you guys are wondering, I've seen a lot of you saying that Zangief's head is not spinning, and he's like some kind of robot, but his head actually is spinning, just it's hard to see because of the footage. And when you slow it down, his head actually is turning, so don't worry, Zangief is not a robot. Okay, so for the grand finale, we get to see Zangief's super, which is obviously the final atomic... Wait a second, this is just a suplex. Yeah, hopefully this is just a placeholder super, or we're missing some animation here. We hear like a slamming noise 3 times with Bison where he goes further and further into the ground. At least it's a grab, so that's like a plus, right? I honestly can't imagine somebody giving the green light on this super instead of the final Atomic Buster. Honestly, we go from the EX series where Zangief is literally jumping out like the planet's atmosphere into space and slam the opponent to the ground. And then we're in Street Fighter 5 and now it's just a suplex. So I don't know. There's not much to say here other than it's a grab. We don't know what the startup animation looks like. We don't know if Zangief runs towards the opponent and grabs him. We're gonna have to wait for some gameplay footage. So yeah guys, that's it. That is the trailer breakdown for Zangief. Like I said, this was a really easy breakdown to do. All the footage was pretty straightforward. So we'll wait till we get some gameplay footage and we'll go from there guys. So thanks again for watching guys. Peace.